A horrific terrorist attack takes place on Easter, the fallout from the Mueller report continues, and Joe Biden announces his run for president. I'll get to all of it. My name is Sean Clinton, and this is the Guide and Freedom Show. Alrighty, so I hope everyone has had a great week so far. Happy Friday. We have a lot to get to, so let's not waste any time. And I apologize if this sound a little horsey right now. Allergies are just kicking my butt. So, it's Georgia. Pollen's pretty much everywhere at this point. But anyways, before we get started, I do want to point out, make an announcement real quick. As far as my uploads is going to go, I'm going to probably switch to maybe just one video a week, just probably on Fridays. For now, this is going to be temporary until for a little bit. Probably eventually I'll get to back to 2 days a week, and then eventually 3 days a week, and so far. But for right now, it's going to be just 1 day a week, and it's going to be on Fridays. And of course, if I can't do Fridays, I'll do sometime in that week, maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, of course. But I'll figure it out whenever that happens. So on to the news. So on Easter, the day where many Christians around the world gather to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ, which is the pivotal foundation for the faith of Christianity. So, and then in Sri Lanka, many Christians, hundreds of Christians, gathered at the churches to celebrate this day. But during this, a series of horrific bombings took place, killing about, right now the death toll is about 250 total, the vast majority of them being Christians. Of course, there's some tourists there. There's actually some hotels that were hit during the bombings as well, but the primary target was the churches around the area. So yeah. So right now, as of I think Wednesday, ISIS has claimed responsibility for this attack, which is not really surprising. But yeah, it was really horrific to wake up to that news on Easter Sunday. But it's unfortunate reality Christians had to face around the world. Of course, in America, Christians are fortunate enough to live in a country where none of this happens on a daily basis. We are free to go anywhere to gather for share our faith, gather anywhere to fellowship and all that. Just kind of just seeing that just kind of makes you realize not to take stuff for granted here in America, because that can very well be us at some point in the future. But anyways, of course, there were many, Christians, conservatives, even, liberals, that send their prayers and condolences to this attack. And just saying that, hope everyone is okay and all that. But anyways, but of course, as always, there's always someone on the left that has to try and downplay this, to make it seem like, oh, this is not an attack on Christians, this is an attack on just people of Sri Lanka, which is, of course, people of Sri Lanka were killed. There were other people besides, hotel tourists and all that that were killed, but the primary target was Christians. There's no doubt about that. So, in the Washington Post, there was this someone named guy named Adam Taylor and another person who helped him, Rick Nowak, wrote a piece in the Washington Post titled "Christianity Under Attack: Sri Lanka Church Bombings Stoke Far-Right Anger in the West." So yeah, and you could tell just by the title, this is going to be quite a good piece. Anyways, here's what it says. Sunday's bombings in Sri Lanka marked the country's deadliest violence in a decade, leaving 290 dead and more than 250 injured. But the attacks, which targeted a religious minority in a predominantly Buddhist country, also resonated disseminated abroad, especially in Europe. And by the way, for the death toll again, it's right now it's 250. Throughout the week, it was kind of going up and down. The highest point reached was 359, I believe. But now, as of today, really, it's gone down to 250, which is not really uncommon for death tolls to happen. To like go up and down like that. It happens with hurricanes. Like happened with Puerto Rico. There was like some fluctuation between whether what the number of deaths in that. But anyways, it continues. To some, it was further proof that Christians in many parts of the world are under attack. Several churches were targeted in Sunday's bombing attacks, along with hotels and a banquet hall. At one Catholic church in Negombo, more than 100 people were killed. The attack took place on Easter, one of the most important days on the Christian calendar. Which is, of course, true. Again, its resurrection is the pivotal point for the foundation of Christianity. Without it, we wouldn't be here at this point. But anyways, my thoughts are once again with the persecuted Christians around the world. Marine Le Pen, president of France's far-right National Rally Party, wrote in a tweet on Monday, "Those who died on Sunday were targeted for their faith," she added, which is true. They were. Le Pen, like some other European far-right leaders, had initially offered only vague condolences to the victims of the bombings on Sunday. However, after Sri Lankan officials blamed a local Muslim militant group, National Tawheed Jamaat, for the attack on Monday, European far-right groups and activists began to describe the attacks as specifically religious terms. Regional branches and sites associated with Germany's far-right Alternative for Germany, AfD, party framed the Sri Lankan bloodshed as an attack against us Christians, even though the party officially claims to be open to all members of religions, including Jews and Muslims. Again, of course, it was an attack against Christians. It continues. Local party branches in the city of Solingen in eastern Germany lashed out at journalists for initially refraining to establish a link to Islamic terrorism. Some far-right groups claim hypocrisy and double standards, arguing that the attacks on Christians fail to receive the same responses as attacks on Muslims. Social media accounts appear to be associated with supporters of far-right groups drew connections to the Christchurch attacks, arguing that shooting sprees at the two mosques in New Zealand were condemned as anti-Muslim attacks early on, whereas governments and media outlets were more cautious in the case of Sri Lanka, which is of course very, very true. You have actually two examples of this was Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. And what I'm going to do is going to read the tweets both of them said about the Christchurch shooting in New Zealand, and then I'm going to read the tweets from their response to the Sri Lanka bombings. So here's Hillary Clinton's response to the New Zealand Christchurch shooting. My heart breaks for New Zealand and the global Muslim community. We must continue to fight the perpetuation and normalization of Islamophobia and racism in all its forms. White supremacist terrorists must be condemned by leaders everywhere. Their murderous hatred must be stopped. Which is, I mean, again, it's not that I don't disagree with it. I completely agree with that statement. White supremacist terrorists need to be condemned everywhere, of course. I mean, yeah, they're an evil group. But anyways, here's Barack Obama's tweet. Michelle and I send our condolences to the people of New Zealand. We grieve with you and in the Muslim community. All of us must stand against hatred in all its forms. Okay? Anyways, and then here's Hillary Clinton's response to the Surely Ka bombings. On this holy weekend, many faiths for many faiths. Sorry, let me start over. On this holy weekend, for many faiths, we must stand united against the hatred and violence. I'm praying for everyone affected by today's horrific attacks on Easter worshippers and travelers in Surely Ka. Notice the language change between the Christchurch and then this tweet. And she doesn't even mention Christians in that tweet. She says Easter worshippers. Okay, and then what she said at the beginning, the whole weekend for many faiths. That's only really faiths I know that actually have a big holiday or whatever during that weekend is Jews and Christians. Christians have Easter or Resurrection Day, and then of course Passover for Jews is Passover. And then here's Obama's tweet. The attacks on tourists and Easter worshippers in Surely Ka are an attack on humanity. Okay. On a day devoted to love, redemption, and renewal, we pray for the victims and stand with the people of Surely Ka. Again, he also says Easter worshippers. It is brings that as an attack on humanity, which it's not the same language he used when the Muslims were attacked in Christchurch. And they're not very different. For the Christchurch, Muslims were targeted for their faith, and this one, the Christians were targeted for their faith. So there are many people on the left trying to downplay this attack to make it seem like, oh, this is a broad attack on people in Surely Ka or humanity or whatever, which is again is simply not true. This is an attack. Was an attack on Christians, as I stated multiple times here. Anyways, let's go back to the piece. Katie Hopkins, a British writer and provocateur, complained on Twitter that American liberal figures such as former President Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton were not using the word Christian to describe those killed in the church bombings. She argued that Sadiq Khan, the Muslim mayor of London, has had set up police patrols at British mosques after the Christchurch attack. But after Surely Ka, Khan offered thoughts and prayers, Hopkins wrote, echoing the much criticized language of American politicians after mass shootings. After American far-right activists offered their only responses, followers of Jesus for what are being killed, otherwise terribly persecuted every day. Frank Gaffney, a former Reagan administration aide now best known for his anti-Muslim rhetoric, said on his radio show, all too often their losses go unremarked. Which is very true. The attacks on Christians and all around the world go very unnoticed in the mainstream media here in America. Similar sentiments were stated on a page on Reddit devoted to support for President Trump, with multiple posts criticizing Obama and Clinton for using the phrase Easter worshippers rather than the Christians. The theme of Christianity under attack has been a recurring one for many activists in the United States and Europe. Gaffney drew criticism for linking devastating fire at Paris Notre Dame Cathedral last week on Christian houses of worship, and for instance, what he suggested was a Muslim-led campaign against Christianity. Excuse me. And French government statistics do show hundreds of incidents of vandalism against churches last year, although the vast majority of acts were minor. Okay, there's still attacks against churches and all that, whether they're minor or not. Officials later confirmed that the fire that destroyed at Notre Dame was accidental, which is, which was confirmed I think last week, I believe. There was construction at the cathedral, like right near it, that probably maybe there was electrical or something that caused like a spark to set the roof on fire, or whatever. But anyways, the Sri Lanka government has responded cautiously to Sunday's attack, initially refusing to speculate about the perpetrators and shutting down social media in an apparent bid to quell conspiracy theories. Health Minister Rajitha whatever told reporters on Monday that National Tawhid Jamaat was responsible and that it may have been working with a foreign network, but no group has come forward to claim attacks yet. Which is as of now, of course, as it says, claimed responsibility for this attack. Of course, this piece actually came out I think a day after the attack, and then ISIS claimed responsibility a couple days after that. But anyways, in contrast, after the Christchurch attack, suspected perpetrator, the shooter was quickly caught alive. He left a lengthy manifesto explicitly outlining his far-right anti-Muslim motives for the shootings, a document that circulated within hours of the attack. Less than 8% of Sri Lankans are Christian, with the vast majority of them Roman Catholic. 12.6% are Hindu and 9.7% are Muslim, while remaining majority are Buddhists. The civil war that wreaked havoc in Sri Lanka for decades before finally ending in 2009 was based generally around nationalism and ethnic identity rather than religion. Although Christian minorities are targeted around the world, analysis say that the vast majority of terrorism victims globally are Muslims. But Gareth Batten, the current leader of the United Kingdom Independence Party, argued that Western officials pay less attention to deaths because they worry about how Muslims will react, which is of course very true. Like, there seems to be many people on the left who are very hesitant to call out Muslim terrorism whenever there is an attack on by them. So yeah. So when it says here, when although Christian minorities are targeted around the world, analysis say that the vast majority of terrorism victims are globally are Muslims. Alright, for terrorism itself, that may be true, but as a matter of fact, the most persecuted religion around the planet globally is Christians. According to Pew Research Center poll, Christians remain the most persecuted religious group in the world. New figures from the Pew Research show. The center's report on religious harassment in 2016 found that Christians were harassed in 144 countries, up from 128. The year before. The center reported that the number of countries with high or very high levels of government restrictions on religion also rose from 25% of countries in 2015 to 28% in 2016. 55 of 198 countries examined by the research. The report says that this is the largest percentage of countries to have high or very high levels of government restrictions since 2013, falls just below a 10-year peak of 29% in 2012. So yeah, again, Muslims may be the number one victims of terrorism itself globally, but as far as like persecution, all numbers, terrorism, harassment, or whatever, Christians are on the top of the list on that one, which is really should be expected. Yeah, Jesus said in the gospel that we're gonna be attacked and persecuted for our faith. It's a matter of fact, and in John 15 verse 18, here's what Jesus says about that. If the world hates you, remember that it it hated me first. The world would love you as one of its own if you belong to it, but you're no longer part of the world. I chose you to come out of the world, so it hates you. Do you remember what I told you? A slave is not greater than a master. Since they persecuted me, naturally they'll persecute you. And if they had listened to me, they would listen to you. They will do all this to you because of me, for they have rejected the one who sent me. And they would not be guilty if I had not come and spoken to them. But now they have no excuse for their sin. Which, yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory right there. Christians are going to be persecuted for their faith, and because the world rejects God and Jesus. And even though we have it good here in America, I see in the future that it won't be like that. I mean, maybe not even 100, maybe even 100 years from now, it would change. Maybe 1,000 years from now, and maybe even next 2 years. But eventually, it will get dangerous here in America for Christians. All right. So, in other news, the fallout from the Mueller report has continued. The narrative for Democrats have hold on. Sorry. So the narrative for Democrats have completely shifted. For a while, for 2 years, they were set on Trump colluded with the Russians to influence the 2016 election and all that. But of course, with the Mueller report, proved that was not the case. There was no collusion or anything to support the notion that Trump colluded with conspired with the Russians. So Democrats naturally shifted their goalposts from collusion to obstruction of justice. Which I do want to remind you, there's no criminal way to charge President Trump for obstruction of justice, just because according to the law you have to have an corrupt intent to obstruct justice. But throughout the Mueller report, there's just no evidence that Trump had that. Of course, he did toe the line. He did, but again, that's just what it really showed, just how Trump was just frustrated with everybody, the Mueller and the investigators about the entire thing. Which I don't blame him. For 2 years, Democrats and the media have accused him for being an illegitimate president and for him cheating his way into the presidency, and that can take a toll on anyone. And of course, President Trump is not one to back down from that kind of stuff. But anyways, again, there's of course, he did to the line of obstruction. If you would have fired Mueller, that still wouldn't have been any criminal charge of obstruction, because again, he does have the power to do that. But he would have most likely been impeached if that happened, but very unlikely if he would have been charged with a criminal case. But anyways, again, Democrats completely shifted their narrative of this whole thing. One of them. Here's also a piece in the Washington Post by Hillary Clinton, who just will not go away. Like, seriously, Democrats would be probably saying to themselves, just go away. Like, pretty much Gollum and Lord of the Rings tell him his evil self to leave now and never come back. But of course, just like in the Lord of the Rings, Hillary Clinton just keeps on coming back and just still more annoying than ever. But she has an opinion piece in the Washington Post titled, Mueller documented a serious crime against all Americans. Here's how to respond. Our election was corrupted, our democracy assaulted, our sovereignty and security violated. This is the definitive conclusion of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report. it documents a serious crime against the American people. The debate of how to respond to Russia's sweeping and systematic attack and how to hold President Trump accountable for obstructing the investigation and possibly breaking the law has been reduced to a false choice: immediate impeachment or nothing. History suggests there's a better way to think about the choices ahead. Again, there's no way to charge a criminal is to have a criminal charge come up against President Trump for obstruction of justice. Like, he may have toed the line of it, but there was, again, no intent to it, and again, with no underlying crime, it's like impossible to have a prosecutor charge him with obstruction of justice. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's just very, very unlikely for that to happen. But anyways, sorry. So here, it continues. Obviously, this is personal for me, and some may say I'm not the right messenger, but my perspective is not just not that of a former candidate and target of the Russian plot. I am also a former senator, secretary of state who served during the much of Vladimir Putin's ascent, sat across the table from him, and knows firsthand that he seeks to weaken our country. And the first part says, well, this is personal for me. Again, that's her way to kind of covering up that she was just a terrible candidate in 2016. She just refuses to accept that she lost fair and square because she was a terrible candidate. So, anyways, it continues on. I am also someone who, by a strange twist of fate, was a young staff attorney of the House Judiciary Committee's Watergate impeachment inquiry in 1974, as well as First Lady during the impeachment process that began in 1998. I was a senator of New York after 9/11, when Congress had to respond to an attack on our country. Each of these experiences offers important lessons of how we should proceed today. First, like on any time our nation is threatened, we have to remember that this is bigger than politics. What our country needs now is a clear-eyed patriotism, not reflexive partisanship. Whether they like it or not, Republicans in Congress share the constitutional responsibility to protect their country. Most report leaves many unanswered questions, in part because of Attorney General William Barr's redactions in obfuscations. Of course, that's her way that, what's her way of saying Mueller didn't find everything, and Barr is covering up something. Again, Mueller is set to testify in front of Congress sometime in May. So we'll see if that's the case, which very likely that's not the case. Again, the Mueller report clearly says there's no evidence of collusion. It's up to the members of both parties to see where the roadmap leads to the eventual filing of articles of impeachment or not. Either way, the nation's interests will be the best served by putting party and political considerations aside and being deliberate, fair, and fearless. Second, Congress should hold substantive hearings to build on the Mueller's report and fill in its gaps, not just straight up jump to up or down vote on impeachment. In 1998, Republican-led House rushed to judgment that was a mistake then and would be a mistake now. Again, that's what many Democrats are echoing, that they're saying they want hearings and more investigations into this whole matter. Again, we have 2 years of this investigation, and it came up not empty, but Democrats had just refused to accept it, which many predicted from the very beginning. That's why they want more hearings, want Mueller to testify. They're probably eventually gonna try to investigate Mueller himself, and accuse him of being a hack for President Trump and Putin. But yeah, it's all utter nonsense, really. Again, I hope President Trump holds on to this until 2020. I mean, holds it against whoever is the nominee and all that, because yeah, he's been unfairly targeted for the last 2 years, and he deserves to use that to his advantage. So, anyways, in other news, in the latest news, yesterday, Joe Biden has announced that he was running for president, which was a long-awaited announcement. From the beginning in 2016, after Trump won, many people predicted that Joe Biden was going to run for president in 2020, and here it is. But what's interesting about this, his campaign launch, is that his message that he said in his video was a very conservative message in a way. At least the beginning part. There was, at the end, is kind of gets a little kind of far-fetched, but anyways, the beginning he talks about the values, the deep values of America and where we come from. He didn't say America is founded on racist principles and founded on slavery or not, whatever. No, he said America is founded on the very special Judeo-Christian values. That's been the foundation of our Western civilization, and that we may not have lived up to these values, but it's still at a core like foundation for our country, and that he wants to reestablish that, which is a very kind of moderate to conservative message. Many conservatives hold that view, and unfortunately many Democrats today do not hold that view. They see America as a horrible, very, very bad, no good place. But of course, his way of doing that is getting the President Trump out and all that. But I mean, other than that, I mean, he's kind of I want to say not more of the saner Democrats. I mean, he's more of the moderate, and he has like the kind of that blue collar appeal to many Americans. So he's not a full blown socialist like Bernie Sanders or whatever. So I mean, so of course there were many reactions to his announcement. There were some conservatives that were very unhappy about it. Of course, some on the left that were very happy about it. And also President Trump trying to too, in his way, said, "Welcome to the race, Sleepy Joe. I only hope you have the intelligence long in doubt to wage a successful primary campaign. It will be nasty. You will be dealing with people who truly have some very sick, demented ideas. But if you make it, I will see you on the Gate." I do want to be honest. Sleepy Joe, that's kind of a weak nickname. You have, as president, you have many other nicknames you could have used. I would have preferred like Creepy Joe. Then you have Crazy Joe, Lazy Joe. I mean, that's a little weird, but you have Smoking Joe, whatever. But Sleepy Joe, and it's a little weak. You need kind of do a little better on your nicknames. As president, you have kind of dumbed down on that a little bit. I can't believe we're actually discussing what the president of the United States should be calling someone as a mockery, a nickname to use against someone as a mockery, whatever. But it's 2019. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. I mean, it's where we are at this point. But anyways, if on the related topic, if Trump were to actually run against Biden in 2020, I want to say his chances are impossible to beat Joe Biden, but being that Joe Biden has a very blue collar appeal, and he's very liked by suburban women. If he were to win the nominee, I mean, I think he has a pretty good chance of beating President Trump in the general election. Maybe Trump will surprise us again and come out swinging, in defeating Joe Biden. But I mean, it doesn't look good if he, but that's if Biden were to win the nomination. And from the looks of it, I highly doubt Joe Biden will actually win the nomination. As a matter of fact, I think the first maybe couple weeks of his announcement will be his best. But maybe his campaign will be like President Trump's, where you got the main Democrats kind of attacking each other, going after each other, and here comes Joe Biden slipping up between the cracks, kind of coming up on top. Maybe beyond that, but again, with a base at the Democratic Party radically changing to like a AOC and Bernie Sanders view on politics, I don't see Joe Biden coming out as the winner of the Democratic Party. I just don't see it. Again, maybe it'll surprise us, but at this point, again, I think Bernie Sanders is the most likely candidate to win. To win the nomination, and at that point, it's Bernie Sanders will not have a chance against President Trump. I'm pretty sure Trump will just completely squash him in the election. But we'll see. I mean, I've been surprised before. We were surprised in 2016. Everybody thought Hillary was going to win, but Trump came out on top during that night. That was a crazy night. But anyways, all right, let's get to some good news and bad news. And I know it's Friday. I usually do some kind of theological kind of stuff, and I did that at the beginning of the episode. That's why I'm doing the good news, bad news. So what I'm going to do is kind of switch it back and forth between several Fridays. Like today would be good news and bad news for the next segment, and then next Friday would be some kind of theological stuff, and then back to good news, bad news. So anyways, in some good news, Avengers Endgame is officially out in theaters. I've not seen it yet, but yeah, it's finally out and it's here. I'm trying very hard to avoid spoilers for this movie. It's been a long-awaited movie since Infinity War, the very end of Infinity War. Spoilers for Infinity War if you haven't seen it. At the very end, Thanos gets all 6 Infinity Stones, and he snaps his fingers, and then half of the universe is dusted away. This is including Bucky Barnes, Black Panther, Hawkeye, Falcon. Trying to remember, Groot was dusted away. Star-Lord, Drax, Mantis was Doctor Strange and Spider-Man were dusted away at the end. So yeah, this has been a long-awaited movie from that time to now. And of course, my prediction is, they'll eventually defeat. They will defeat Thanos. I think everybody that was dusted away at the end of Infinity War will come back. But I do think Iron Man and Captain America will probably be killed off during the movie. Because apparently both their contracts are up after this one. Maybe it'll be a big twist at the end. Maybe both of them will survive, but we'll see. And again, I'm trying really hard to avoid spoilers and all that. Sorry, but yeah, pretty much gonna have to be sent to exile, kind of like what Yoda said. Into exile, I must go in episode 3. But anyways, let's get into some kind of bad news. So, Bernie Sanders wants prisoners to have the right to vote. No, I'm not joking. During a thing, a town hall or event or whatever, he was talking about how prisoners should have the right to vote, which is an utter idiotic stance. I mean, there is a case to be made that where that people who get out of prison and who serve their debt to the country should be able to vote. I mean, I have no problem with that, but people who are in prison should not be able to vote because, I mean, they violate the laws of the country and are serving their time, and should have no representation of what was how to run this country, because they'll probably vote for someone who wants to get them out. But anyways, Bernie Sanders, wants prisoners to get the right to vote, and even people like the Boston bomber. Like, someone asked, would it be fine if the Boston bomber guy was to have the right to vote? And he says, all prisoners should have the right to vote, even terrible people, which is just absolutely insane. As we recall, the Boston bomber, he attacked the Boston Marathon. He set a bomb like 2 feet away from a little boy who was killed during the blast. And you want that guy to have the right to vote, have any representation in our country? He hates America. Why should he have any word of how this country is run? It makes no sense whatsoever. But that's Bernie Sanders for you. That's why I don't think if he were to get the nomination, which is very likely, he would have no chance against President Trump, because American people will not have it with his views. They will not stand for his views or whatever. Alright, so that's all I have for today. I'll be back here next Friday probably with all the latest. We'll see, or whatever else is in the news then. But yeah, I'll see y'all until then. I hope everyone has a great weekend and a week until then. So yeah, my name is Sean Clinton, and this is the Guide and Freedom Show.